Hello, everyone, or whatever that means. I just wanted to sort of round out this tutorial. I mean, I think I've got like a handful of views, and I'm pretty sure all of them are bots, so I'm mostly just doing this for myself. So I just wanted to go over the last few features that I haven't really covered specific to the Dwarf Fortress Remote application. As far as tutorials go, I don't think anyone's ever gonna watch mine, so maybe they'll watch this one though. Anyway, let's go over the some of the features I haven't covered yet. So again, on the magnifying glass, there's the house. This one lets you query a building, as there's only one building up here. It's just assuming you want to query the wagon. You can name your buildings. You can see what's inside your buildings. That's fine. Under the second icon here, the person, you can query a person or animal. There's no job for this cat, but you can assign jobs to certain animals, I believe. On the eye here, we've looked at this a lot. This just lets you look around and examine what's there. Most of what I haven't covered is actually up here in the menu. So again, we've sort of looked at the designation menu here. This is where all of the designations for Dwarf Fortress can be found. In general, you're going to be using this for mining, occasionally building stairs, a fair amount for both smoothing and engraving stone. All of those options are all here. One thing I did want to show is slightly more advanced. Now, this is an option in Dwarf Fortress that I didn't even know existed until I used this application. But here, so you can actually prioritize mining by going to designation, mine, and maybe we'll go down a few layers. Designation, mine. So say we wanted to dig, or we wanted to create like a huge labyrinth that we wanted to dig, but we wanted to have this be a lower priority than things that we wanted to immediately do, or say we have a small project we wanted to do right away, and then the larger project can hold off. Well, over here on the bottom right corner is this little gear icon, and if you tap on that, then you can actually do some very special mining here. For instance, you can automate mining ores and gems. So if you tap on that, and over here we have some gems. It looks like there might be a little vein here. We can actually tap that, and just by doing that one spot, that'll cause the dwarfs to come over and actually just mine that whole area. Additionally, up here on the priority, you can see that you can make different priority digs. So you can say, hey, let's dig everything, but at priority 2. And then up here on priority 1, a higher priority dig, we can say, hey, I want you to dig that part first. So it's pretty neat being able to, determine that, hey, there's different priorities for digging. So that's just one thing, and I believe there are priorities for a lot of other things too. Like if you wanted to do the stairs, you can set priorities for the stairs as well. Buildings, this is an entire episode of its own, and I'm sure there are tons of people out there that cover this a lot better than I ever could. But in general, there's everything that you would ever be able to build here. A lot of these things have very special requirements. For instance, like the traps require mechanisms, and you wouldn't be able to really make those until you have a mechanic shop, which is one of the other workshops here. Mechanics workshop. So there's just a whole bunch of items that you can designate to build, but you wouldn't be able to build them until you had the prerequisites necessary. There's stockpiles and zones. I've gone over. Announcements are interesting because occasionally things will just pop up and it'll just be way too quick, but you can see sort of what's been happening in your fort. The little pop-ups that occasionally go really fast. There's nothing to report right now. If there was, kind of up here at the top where you see 104.7 and the month, you would see, I think, a red R there if there was something to report. Typically, if like some animal, like if you have dogs, for instance, if your dogs get into a fight with a wild animal, that'll show up in the report early on. Obviously, as you go later on, you're going to have bigger and bigger problems, including potentially getting, attacked by either monsters or goblins or something. That'll show up in your reports as well. Manager, we showed the manager here last time we talked about the manager, the noble role, but I mean in here you can, because we have a manager now, we can basically just say, hey, I want to build, beds, and then you can tap on that and just say how many beds you want. And again, you're not limited to the 10 beds that you would if you were manually queuing them up inside the workshops menu. So going back here, nobles, again, you can kind of see which nobles you have designated. We've only talked about the manager and bookkeeper, and I'm not going to be talking about anything else. You can look into those as needed. I don't even know why I'm talking like anyone's going to watch this, but anyway, I hate leaving things unfinished, so I just wanted to finish this set of videos. Anyway, military. Military is a rather large, somewhat complicated subsection of this game. It's very important to understand, but essentially, it's very, very much set up to, initially create a squad, determine what clothes and armor and weapons and stuff your squad's going to use, and then you can actually create multiple squads. You can have them train and get better. So if or when you do eventually get attacked, you'll be, significantly more prepared. Up here on the more menu, you can see your squads. You can see alerts. You see uniforms. You can designate the uniforms that you would need to designate here. Designate which I believe which roles or which squads are allowed to use which ammunition. And up here's a schedule. This is your training schedule, but we don't have any squads designated, so we can't set up training schedules, but that's how you would do it. Orders. I've never really poked around in this, so this is kind of new for me. Yeah, I mean, you can see what's here. It looks actually really interesting. I didn't know some of these were options. Auto loom all thread, that's pretty cool. Forbid touching or moving specific things. Yeah, neat. A bunch of garbage designations and everything. Cool. So squads, again, I think I just mentioned that we don't have any squads, but if you had designated them in the military menu, they would show up here. Labors, this is just showing you, again, how many dwarves are set to do how many of these different items. If there's a dash, obviously there's no one designated to do them. Yep, and then you can see units. So if you wanted to look and see which labors a specific unit is designated to do, you can see them here. You can enable them or disable them by tapping. So units is another view to look at your units. This is more. Let's see. Yeah, so this is a much more thorough way to look at a unit. You can see, obviously, the skills is what we just looked at, or labors rather. So this is what we looked at. Skills shows you what they're proficient in. Health. We don't have a dwarf, or a chief medical dwarf, so we can't look at their health breakdown. But under inventory, you can see what they're holding, and again, relationships, and you can see who in the fort they're related to. It looks like this person or this dwarf worships this deity as well, so you can see thoughts and preferences. This is actually a very important part of the game that I never got into, but you can, it's a lot of reading, but you can see a rough idea of what it's like to live in your fort here. And generally, you want to look at the sort of red and orange items here. She was frustrated after being unable to practice a craft for too long, so obviously this person wants to craft something. And I mean, yeah, you just kind of see how you can optimize it, but it is very micromanagey to dig this far in. But I mean, it's a totally legitimate playstyle. Work animals, you can see what animals they have designated as work animals. So artifacts are very powerful items in the game. I don't think I have anything here. But yeah. So you usually find them. I think you can get extremely lucky and craft them. But yeah, I mean, that's where they would show up if you had them. I gotta be honest. I've never worked with burrows too much. I think I messed around with it once. I don't remember enough to really talk about it with any level of confidence, though. Yeah, so we've looked a little bit at the status menu. Again, you can kind of see items here. We are very low on meat. We're fairly low on seeds. That's fine, but as I mentioned earlier, we accidentally designated eating, or cooking rather, with the plump helmets, which was a bad idea. Definitely something we wanted to turn off, but I did it too late, which doesn't really matter because I'm going to be ditching this fort here real soon. But yeah, you can look at the different animals you have here. Again, as you have migrant waves come in, they will occasionally come in with animals, so you want to have them in the same pen as you would set up in the first episode, kind of the same pasture, I guess. So make sure that you add new animals to that pasture as needed. Cats and dogs can probably stay indoors, but yeah, you want your bigger animals to stay outside so they can eat grass and stuff. Kitchen, this is where you can forbid or allow either cooking or brewing with different plants. You can see all the different kinds of stones you have here. There's so much stone in this game. You really do need to look at a wiki page to see which of these are important, because typically a lot of these you're going to I believe they're called alloys. They're rocks that contain multiple different kinds of metal in them. So you might have one that has like iron and silver in it, or one that has copper and tin in it, or something like that. So yes, a lot of these things have significantly more information than I can really get into, but this is where you would look at them and allow them allow them to be used for anything or forbid them, which is yep. Stocks, you can look at your stocks. Yeah, I mean, you can look at different categories. These are all the armor items we have. If you look at categories, if you look at your beds, it's like, oh yeah, I got a whole bunch of beds. Health, I don't think we can. Yeah, we can't do without a chief medical dwarf. Justice, sheriff or captain of the guard is required for this, so there's nothing there. Civilizations, this is just the civilizations you're aware of. We didn't get to trading, which is a easy way to meet another civilization or other civilizations. Again, you can go find another tutorial that'll cover trading in more detail, but the short of it is you're going to set up a trade depot that's accessible to other dwarves, and through that you can actually do a fair amount of exchanging. So if you have a whole bunch of cups and you need some swords, then theoretically you can make that trade in a trade depot once traders come to visit you. Depot access, again, is what I was just mentioning. You want to make sure that if you have built a depot, it is accessible by the traders, which isn't usually a problem if you do it outdoors, but if you're going to make an indoor trade depot, then it is a little trickier. You got to make sure there's enough width for the trade wagons to make it through. Under locations, so we didn't get in. We'd sort of set up a dining room, but you can actually set up the dining room as a tavern, and that'll actually have random guests come in. Occasionally they'll just hang out at your tavern, but sometimes they'll even join your fort. It's pretty neat. And then there's temples and I believe libraries as well. Under petitions, I think as you get a much larger fort, you'll start to get petitions. These are dwarves that want certain things. Buildings, you can see a rough outline of everything you've built. It's a little wonky because, again, remember you built these doors, so there's a a whole mess of doors inside that building menu, so it's a little overwhelming. Typically, you'll just want to look at workshops or activity zones. And finally, hauling. You can define hauling routes. Again, this is another area besides the burrows that I've never really got into. But to optimize your fort or to optimize, getting things to the trade depot and stuff, you can set up specific trading, like hauling routes. Haven't really had a fort big enough that I had to worry about this, though. Finally, on the little gear icon here, if I tap on that, this is something I definitely should have shown in the very first episode, but this is where you go to save your game. You can either do a quick save, which is something that I believe the core game doesn't have in it, but DF Hack is one of the modules that's included with the Dwarf Fortress Remote server component. Will let you just do quick saves, so you don't actually have to quit your game. Yep, and then under settings, you can set your FPS. There's only one tile set, I believe. Yeah, the Space Fox tile set, so it's pretty neat. And I think in theory you can add more tile sets, but I haven't really tried to do that. I like the Space Fox one in here enough. Multi-level rendering. This is basically if we go above ground. We can see 3 different Z levels at the same time. So you can see, if we go to the ground, so this is the ground level. If we go up 1 level, here's the bottom of the trees. And again, you can still kind of see some of the trees. If we go up 1 more level, we're, seeing the tops of one of these trees. But if we go up 1 more level beyond that, the trees just keep getting taller and taller. But we can still see basically 3 Z levels worth of stuff here clearly. And again, if we go to the settings, that's where we would change it. I've never messed around with the justified text alignment or the when designating cancel to first corner. Yes. Whenever you're designating like mining and how whenever you cancel, it goes back to where you started. So anyway, yep. Finally, there's retiring the fortress. So you can only have 1 active fortress at a time, but in theory, you could have multiple fortresses you were sort of playing with. The thing is, if you retire this fortress and then you start playing another fortress, your old fortress will continue to be simulated. So you can retire this fortress and then come back to it later. But some stuff will have occurred over time as you were, working with the other one. So user guide, it actually works. I didn't have a lot of luck with the help menu, so I didn't even bother showing that. But if you tap the 3 bars, this question mark here shows you a help menu, but it doesn't seem to, doesn't seem to be great or really fleshed out yet. Yep, so it's just a web browser, I guess. Anyway, that's about it. I think if you're really interested in using this app, I absolutely recommend it for learning to play the game. It's Dwarf Fortress is notorious for having a huge learning curve, and anything that helps new players get over that, I'm a big fan of. But more importantly, having a really usable user interface is fantastic. So anyway, I had fun recording this. If anyone actually watched it, that'd be neat, but I'm pretty sure it's just bots. Anyway, I hope this helps someone at some point. Thanks a lot.